Of all the things that we've worked on with members-based policies, and since I became leader and working with Shadow Cabinet, I think one of the things I'm proudest of is that we do have that. It's too long, I know that. But at 150-some pages on our website, Canadians can find out what we stand for. And not only that, we're not afraid to admit that there might be better ideas out there. And since Don's speech last night, my finance critic, Art Van Leeuwen, and I've been back and forth like, okay, well, maybe we could do some of the things that Don thought would bring us up to an A. Because we shouldn't just rest on our laurels just because we have a B+ and everyone else has an F. We should think about how we get that A. Like, our policies speak to the full program that any responsible government should focus upon. Our policies talk about protecting and strengthening the social safety net. A lot of people make the mistake, and Alec Adams is here somewhere from Aurelia. We were talking about this the other night. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that a social safety net is something you have in place if you care about the poor. Sort of a charitable instinct. No, the research is really strong on this. The social safety net is something you have in place if you care about your country. Social safety net is what you have in place to protect the middle class, democracy, communities. Social safety net is not expendable. We also have a program that moves us to fuller employment, and that's driven by an energy revolution that brings on board those things that have created hundreds of thousands of jobs already in other countries by bringing in, and it takes a while, so we've got a plan, but we need to make the transition to more solar and more wind and more geothermal and more tidal, and we need to make that massive revolution that brings us to energy efficiency through effective demand-side management, retrofitting our buildings, building and enhancing our mass transit, all the things that modernize our economy, create jobs, and almost as a side effect, clean the air and protect the climate. We offer practical approaches based in our own values of peace and conflict resolution that we would bring to global challenges, to international conflicts. And when you look through Vision Green, you see a tremendous focus on some really sensible policies for the world, for conflict areas. We are not a party, despite the fact that this comes up now and then, we are anything but a one-issue party. We are fully fledged nationally and prepared to govern. Thank you. How do we know? How do we know our policies will work? I mean, for Canadians who want to say, oh, well, those Greens, they think they can govern. They think they know good policy. Well, we're really lucky as a party because we've road tested the best policies, and we know what works. And we know it works because Greens have been elected in governments around the world, and wherever Green MPs have formed governments in coalitions with others, the changes that have been made have aided the economy. Hundreds of thousands of new jobs in Germany were created because the German Greens insisted on a decent feed-in tariff and a program to shift to renewables, and they are conquering the world in the new technologies, even stealing from Canadian companies, taking them over to Germany. We can't blame Canadian companies for going to Germany. They're making it possible for them to build the factories there while we turn a blind eye to them here. We have got to keep Canadian new technology for renewable energy, for efficiency, for fighting toxic contamination, for cleanups. Those companies need to know that if their idea was born in Canada, we'll give life to them in Canada, we'll create the jobs in Canada, and not see them go overseas. The Greens have been in governments in countries as long as we can mention Germany, I've mentioned Norway, Sweden, now in Ireland, in France. around the world and making a difference in the Australian Senate. Now we know they're going to make a difference on the floor of the Australian House of Commons. They're in the New Zealand Parliament, have been in government in New Zealand. We see Greens in Brazil, Greens in many countries in Africa and around the world making a difference. And sometimes where our colleagues are making a difference, they're also at threat. The Rwandan Greens, we must remember that the vice president of the Rwandan Greens was recently murdered. In many parts of the world, the work we do is much, much harder. We are so blessed in this country that in pursuing the changes we know we need to see, we don't fear for life and limb. We make sacrifices, but they're small, they're financial, they're of time, but nothing like what those brave Greens do in other countries around the world where it's so difficult. But those Greens who have been elected, who have shown the way through Sweden, through Germany, through Norway, all around the world, have given us the business case that this stuff works. It creates jobs. It works. And then you'll hear those in the fossil fuel industry say, oh, well, sure, they created jobs in Germany in renewable energy, but they had to subsidize it. And guess what? A recent study by the International Energy Agency with studies from a group in London, England as well, reviewed the subsidies globally to renewables versus fossil fuels. You won't be surprised to hear this, I'm sure. Fossil fuels are still receiving 12 times the global subsidy that renewable energy is receiving. So let's just pull the plug on the subsidies to fossil fuels and move into the future. Sometimes people say, well, what's the point in voting Green? I just think about it. What's the point in voting anything else? I mean, that's where you struggle. Struggle to find a point. Electing Green MPs is the game changer. Electing Green MPs in our House of Commons in Canada will change everything. Les politiques des vieux partis sont dépassées. The other parties are past their best before date by a decade or so. Les Canadiens sont désillusionnés avec tous les autres. Et maintenant, nous sommes les sources d'espoir. Ils désirent une politique tout à fait différente. And this is what we offer. We know we're not like the old parties. We know we're not like the old line parties. And we think that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Par reprendre les paroles d'Ingrid Betancourt. Tout le monde connaît Ingrid Betancourt. She was, of course, the founder of Colombian Greens and was held in captivity in Colombia for all those years, 6 years in the jungle. But before she was captured, she'd spoken at the very first Global Greens Summit in Australia. And she'd said, je reprise en français les paroles d'Ingrid Betancourt, le futur est vert et il le sera. The future is green and it will be. The future is green. I can see it right around the corner. I mean, that's the thing we have to hold in our mind, is to see clearly how possible it is, not only how possible, but how close. I can see it around the corner, and it shines brightly, so brightly that it blinds those who drill for oil and scrape at bitumen and think that's good enough to be an economy. We see a bright green future, and those around us who continue to deny its possibilities, those around us who don't see the future, they embrace what is dying. And Greens embrace what is being born. And that's the difference. We look to the future, we believe in our future, because to lack that faith and to lack that belief is to give up on our children. Le futur est vert. The future is green. It will be, because it must be. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're all wonderful. I love you. Thank you so much.